there, this is Canadian Tech Videos. Welcome. After a, well, let's say unplanned little rest time, I'm back and I'm feeling much better. So it is time to start working on some stuff again. And the first thing that I am going to be working on is a computer that I built a little while ago. I want to turn it into a dual boot computer. A little while ago, I built this computer. It was before I started my second channel, so I didn't film the process. As a matter of fact, I had so much fun building it, it's entirely the reason that I started this second channel. So this computer is running a Ryzen 5 9600X with 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz DDR5 Vulkan RAM. There's an Intel Arc B580 graphics card, and it's all running on an Asus TUF B650 motherboard. Now, up to this point, I have been running Linux Mint on this computer. And this is my Windows computer. This is the computer I've been using for the last 5 or 6 years. It's an Aspire TC885 office computer that I have done some upgrades to. It's been the computer that I've used for work, and it's been the computer that I entirely used for my other YouTube channel up to this point. So it is running an i5-8400 processor, and some of the upgrades that I did to it is I added a GTX 1650 graphics card, and I also upgraded the memory to 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and yeah, I added, with the M.2 slot in here, I added a SATA drive so that I could get rid of the mechanical hard drive that was in here. Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to take that M.2 drive out of here, and I want to put it in my new computer. Yes, it's a Windows drive. That will make the other computer into a dual boot computer that I will just be able to change in the BIOS whether I want to boot Windows or Linux. Now it's time to disassemble this computer and get that drive out of here. This computer is a bit of a pain in the butt to work on because the M.2 slot on this computer is hidden back under here somewhere. It's underneath this drive cage and the DVD drive and everything, so you have to basically disassemble everything to get to it. I did do a video when I initially upgraded that, so if you're interested in that, then you can check it out. I put a link to that video in the description. I'm not going to bore you with it here. And also, don't worry, I'm not getting rid of this computer. I have some plans for at least some parts of it for the future. To get to the second M.2 slot on this board, I do have to remove the graphics card. So I've already got the screws out. Okay, this is plastic, so shouldn't do any damage if it slips. There we go. And there is the slot right here. Love the twisty locks on here. It makes putting the PCIe drives in here so much easier. The second one is actually under this heatsink here. So, yeah, let's put the graphics card back in and fire this up. See if it will boot from that drive, if what I've seen on the internet is true. I've watched much smarter people than me, and it looks like Windows should probably just reconfigure itself to run on this, but if it doesn't, we'll tackle that when we get to it. Okay, I did run into a few problems when I first tried to boot up this computer. For some reason, it did not show at all my Windows drive. It only showed the Linux drive, so I removed the Linux drive. I still had problems with it, so I put the Windows drive back into the other computer. I thought maybe it had wiped it or something. It didn't, but now that I put just the Windows drive in here, it seems to be working. So I'm going to try and set this up with this computer and then add the Linux drive and see what happens. All right, well, Windows is working on this computer. It took a couple of minutes to reconfigure itself, and now it's just working. I have to, of course, go through and clean it all up, get rid of all of the programs on there that were designed for the hardware of that other computer, and add all the programs that are designed for the hardware of this computer. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reinstall my Linux drive, and let's see if it recognizes both drives. And here we are into the BIOS, and as you can see over on the side there, the boot priority is showing 2 drives. That is what we want. So you can see it's got the Windows Boot Manager and the Ubuntu drive. Now, simply when I want to switch drives, I just have to go into the BIOS when I boot the computer up and change the boot priority order. Right now, it's set to boot into Windows because that's the one that's on top. So yeah, let's finish putting this computer back together and then we can play around with this, and I've just got a few more things I want to try out with it. Alright, I've successfully got Windows running on here. I have the graphics card back in here. I have all of the drivers downloaded and everything, and boy, let me tell you, that's one big difference working on these new computers compared to the old ones is the amount of time it takes to download all of the drivers and do the updates and everything. In the time it takes me to do one update on here, I would have been able to download the entire contents of the Color Computer archive for my TRS-80 color computer and start playing games on choosing any of the games made for that computer to play that I had just downloaded. Alright, so let's try and then change this over to boot into Linux and see if that works. Okay, restart. There we go, we are into the BIOS. Now all I have to do is change it around that Ubuntu driver is there. Save and exit. There we go, Linux Mint. All right, well, that worked. Well, there you go. I can now boot from either Windows or Linux on my new computer. So, yeah, really happy about that. There is one more thing I want to try, but first, I'm sure some of you are asking, especially if you've watched my other videos, you're asking yourselves, why did I do this? I've talked incessantly for the last few months about how much I hate Windows 11, how much I am trying to get as far away from it as I possibly can. So why did I go and put Windows 11 on my new computer? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1 reason is this drive. I have a ton of video stuff and everything on this drive. I've got hundreds of hours of footage on here, and yeah, I still use a lot of it for when I have to go back and grab a scene from an old video or something. So I need to still have access to that, and I didn't want to go through the process of copying it all over to a new drive. And number 2 is games. I have heard and watched so many people that have switched over to Linux saying how they can't get this game or that game or whatever working properly on it, and well, they're just going to go back to Windows 11 because the gaming is no good. Now, I have not found that. Everything I want to play on my computer here seems to run fine on Linux, but in the eventuality that I do run into one of those games, I'll be able to put it onto the Windows drive and play it whenever I want. Now, the next thing that I wanted to try is, I have a USB stick here. I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. It should. I can't see any reason that it wouldn't, but I'm going to just plug this into the computer here. All right, I'm not sure what happened there, but when I plugged that drive in, it said there was an error and it needed to check it, but it's open now. And what I want to do is, I just want to go find a little file here. We'll just take this game list, copy it onto there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this over to Linux and see if I can't grab that file off of here. And if that works, then yeah, that's what I wanted to do. See if I can trade files back and forth through a drive like that. All right, and you can actually see now that the USB stick is now one of the drives for the boot priority there. So let's change it back over to Ubuntu. All right, there we go, and look at that, there's the drive. And there is the file that I took. So, boom. It worked. So one of the great things about this particular motherboard on here is that aside from the 2 PCIe slots, I can also hook up 4 hard drives to it. Now, I have a crap load of mechanical hard drives that I've been taking out of a bunch of different computers. I've also got some SATA drives lying around here, so I'm going to put at least one into here, and that will be my file share hard drive, and I'll be able to move programs back and forth. There we go. That computer is set up how I want it. I am, of course, mostly going to be running Linux on it. It's just unfortunate that sometimes something will come up and I'll need to run it through Windows. And yeah, now I can do that on this computer with just the touch of a button when I'm booting it up. All right, well, this is the part where I say thank you to my patrons, whose names are currently going by on the screen. If you're interested in becoming a patron of the channel, then check out the link in the description, and that, of course, will make you a patron of both of my channels, this one and my retro channel, Canadian Retro Things, where I work on older computers, generally mostly 70s and 80s computers. All right, well, that is it for today. So I have to say thank you for watching the video, liking, subscribing, commenting below, all those things that help out the YouTube algorithm to help get my videos out to more people. So thanks a lot, and I will see you in the next one.